Hello, you beautiful little marketing bees. You're tuned into episode 88 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello and welcome back to the Marketing Buzzword Podcast. This is the podcast which helps you to understand what all of these business and marketing buzzwords actually mean and how they can be helpful or not going forward. I'm your host Ben Roberts, and in this show I'm the marketing bee in charge of making sure I can get on the right guests and ask the right questions to make sure that these words and phrases actually make sense. Now, today's show's a big one, and in today's show we're going to make sense of the buzzword challenger brand. And before we get into that, it's that this podcast is powered by Talkative. Talkative is a company that brings together live web chat, voice calls, video calls, and co-browsing together in one package embedded into your website with just 3 lines of code. Allows you to chat with your customers in real time, answer all their questions, and have all that information saved directly into your CRM. So automates a huge amount of the process while actually giving you a more personal face to your website. Find out more at talkative.uk. And quickly, if you are loving the show, please do leave a review on iTunes. I really, really do appreciate it. Right, there's more enough about me. It's time to introduce this week's guest. Now, this week's expert buzzword bee is someone called Andrea D'Aloia. I always get that wrong. So, Andrea has several years of exposure in managing successful brands such as Nutella, Kinder, and Burger King across different markets around the world. Especially working at Burger King, where he's currently leading the role of EMEA brand director. He has been involved in multiple award-winning campaigns that challenge the normal limitations brands impose upon themselves, including Scary Clown Night, Burger Clan, and Love Fire. These are just a few Avantos. Avantos? That's not even a word. There's just a few examples. His motto is, be afraid, but do it anyways. This show was really cool. I loved what Andre was talking about and the openness that he showed in this, and sort of actually, you'll have to literally listen to it for me to be able to. My words will not describe what the information he gives away and the ideas that he shares. So, it's more enough from me. Let's get on with the show. Hi, Andrea, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey Ben, how's it going?
Oh, it's really, really well here. It's actually bright blue sky in the UK. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the weather is just, it's completely changeable at the moment, but I am loving the sunshine. I'm in a much happier place. How are things with you?
Yeah, actually pretty good. It's a bit windy here in Zurich, but yeah, I can see a blue sky. So
Hey, any bit of blue makes a day a lot better.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thanks so much for coming on today, because I know you've obviously got a new daughter at the moment. So thank you so much for making the time to come on this podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no problem at all. So, theme of today, we're going to talk about challenger brands. And this is, I think, something that you have a real passion and insight in for your work with Burger King. So, Andrea, what is a challenger brand, and what are some of the particular, I guess let's start with the obstacles actually. What are the difficulties of being a challenger brand?
Yeah, I think I believe that to qualify as a challenger, you need to think about being number 2 in anything you do. So you're kind of the underdog. You are much less resources than the number 1. You are not afraid of being different, and you actually don't care too much if people actually love you or hate you, as long as they talk about you. So this is, for me, is like the quintessential aspect of being a challenger brand. So like in the case of a Burger King, we have on average across EMEA at least 5 times less marketing spends versus our main competitor. So you can imagine that we need to be really creative and find new ways to compete on the same level. So I think it's basically, I think it's more like a mindset actually, and it's actually something that pushes you to be bolder than the number one, which kind of need to be like playing the more conventional role of pleasing everyone. So that, I think that is the biggest difference between a challenger brand and a leading brand.
And is that quite a difficult mindset to get into? Do you ever find that as a challenger brand that you're like, oh, well, I wish I had more resources, or I wish I did this, or is it actually quite exciting? Can it be quite frustrating going, I wish we had the resources or the potential of this whoever's in number one, or does it open up more opportunities than it does frustrations?
I think it's the second one. I think it's actually better to be a challenger brand, at least from a marketing standpoint, because you kind of need to squeeze resources. You need to push your partners to come up with ideas that are amazing, are bold, but at the same time needs to be cheap. Needs to have an eye on the profit and loss, on the cost. And in particular, this is I think that if you look back in the past 3 years and for BK, this is all the flashy stunts and the activation that we did were not that expensive. We did social experiment. We did a campaign in 2014 with for Pride Day. It was all around a wrap. So it was like a rainbow wrap for the Whopper, and then we called it the Proud Whopper, and everybody wanted to have this Proud Whopper. Everybody believed that there was something different, and then it was exactly the same thing. So basically, when the people opened the wrap, inside the wrap, it was written, inside we're all the same. So that's it. That was the campaign. Then we crafted a video and so on, but I think it's trying to find a cheap way, but that people talk about it and make feel people empowered and make the brand be part of a broader conversation. It's the most important thing, and that is why so far BK has been very successful.
Oh, I absolutely love that example. And I think that's one of the things is people will sometimes listen to, I guess, podcasts like this and interviews like this and go, okay, this is great. I can see how Burger King is a huge global food organization. They have all these resources. They have all these things. It's like, and it's kind of really refreshing to see actually something that's really simple, that actually people of all different businesses and all different industries can apply a principle like that of actually being quite simple. And actually, it has massive effect, and it shows actually that it doesn't matter the size of the business or the market they operate in. It actually, these simple things don't have to be the biggest, fluffiest campaign with all these gizmos and flashing lights. It can be as simple as changing. Obviously, there's some more complexities around it in the production of it and actually promoting that this is a thing. But the actual concept itself is quite a simple idea that people can do. And this is what we look at, I guess, a bit of guerrilla marketing, where actually these simple ideas can have a really powerful effect for challenger brands especially.
Sure. I mean, another example is what we did recently for the Mental Health Month. We simply changed the packaging of our meals we basically say that not every meal should be happy, because not everyone is happy all the time. Everyone is happy all the time. So we had like the angry meal, the blue meal, and people love that because it's authentic. And at the end of the day, the idea was just changing the packaging. The product inside is exactly the same. But of course, we take advantage of the notoriety of our competitors' Happy Meal, and we transform in something that is relevant specifically for that occasion. But at the end of the day, the idea was to change the packaging, so it was not that expensive. So what the fundamental thing was that, okay, do we have an idea which is strong enough with people will talk about it right now? And this is what is important, is that if you really want to be a challenger brand, you need to be part of the conversation and talk about about things that people love to talk in that specific moment. Probably in a couple of months, nobody would care about that. But in that specific moment, we saw that that was a trending topic, and that's why we came up with that idea.
I love that, and again, and this is what actually leads into one of the questions I really want to sort of dig into, is how you research this and how you stay on top of these trends. So obviously, with Pride, you have to sort of work out a couple of months in advance. You know when Pride is in different countries, so you can sort of start planning it. So how do you guys research and stay ahead of the curve? Because some of these trends will pop up quite quickly and then disappear quite quickly. Some will last for a period of time. So your Pride example, it's something you could do on an ongoing basis across different countries, and they have different Pride weeks, LGBT plus weeks, whereas other ones come and go. So how do you, as a branding and marketing team, how do you research and come up with these ideas and stay ahead of your curve, and even try and get ahead of the number one, or even stay ahead of other challenger brands? Because obviously Burger King aren't just the single challenger brand in this aspect. There are so many other companies that are always trying to catch you guys as well.
Yeah, I think it's that we are lucky because we have our partner agency are kind of obsessed. We briefed them. Our briefs are very broad, are just one-liner. So that's it. So they are just one-liner, and we basically push them to bring up ideas every day, in the middle of the night. So we have a portfolio of ideas that are sitting in the back seat, and we just wait for them to for the right occasion. So it's sometimes we have like 5 agencies. They come up with tons of ideas for, I don't know, Mother's Day, and we just use one of them, and then we have others that we can probably apply for other things. But I think that the key here is that to have partners who are obsessed with your brand and to be as broad as possible when you brief them. So we have like 3 one-liners with one is because fire is better, the other is showcase Whopper love, and the other is we welcome everyone. That's it. That's the brief that BK does to creative agency when it comes to creative stunts. Of course, there are from price and promotion, the bread and butter that we do every day because this pays our salaries. But to talk about the brand and to build a strong equity, we just use these 3 one-liner, and we have, as I said, a network of agencies who are obsessed in continuously coming up with the new ideas.
No, I absolutely love that. I love the simplicity of, it's just one-liners, and people sometimes can get caught up in giving really detailed briefs and saying they have all these exact specifications that they want, and it has to deliver X, Y, Z, it has to say these exact words in this exact time. And we see actually this is a big problem with, we've seen a bit of a backlash on influencer marketing, where brands have tried to be so controlling over the output or controlling over what someone else creates. They don't actually let the creatives do the creative element. And I think that's a really sort of, again, quite a powerful thing that you've brought out there, is actually you let the creatives do that creative by giving them this is your brand, this is what your 3 things are that you stand for, and it's right, find something that will sort of capture people's imagination that is completely in line with Burger King's core beliefs.
Sure. And we discard like 98, 99% of the ideas. So it can be very frustrating, but the one that works, it generates normally over 100 million, 200 million impressions. It can be deployed across different markets, and then we have a tendency of winning some awards as well along the way, which is not our goal, but it's always good. It's always nice. Yeah. So.
And I love as well that even though you just discard, say, 99% of those ideas, you still actually have a bank of ideas. And I think this is something that people forget to actually do. It's just because an idea necessarily wasn't put right just at this year. Actually, that could be a brilliant idea for 2 years' time, because there could be some changes in the industry, or it could be good for another time of the year. And I think people quite easily discard ideas that it's not relevant now, so we'll just completely forget about it. Whereas actually come up with that bank of ideas and you go, oh, okay, there's say 5 potential ideas, and it's actually this could be used either in a different scenario, or this could be used next year. And actually that helps, because people talk a lot about actually creating banks of video content or podcasts, so making things easy for yourself. You don't feel like you're constantly under enormous amounts of pressure, like shoot, we have 1 month to come up with a new idea, when actually there's potentially a bank there which could be either adapted, or there's already fruit for thought in there. The ideas have already been partly created, and that makes it feels like it makes it a lot easier for you guys to be able to come up with new campaigns, because you've already got a basis there that gives you an underpinning and helps you understand what's coming next.
Yeah, and I mean, there are resources like Google Trends or Trends Map that gives you all the most used hashtags and what is actually trending in that specific moment. I remember last year, it was a couple of years ago. There was a new movie, It, the one,
the clown.
The clown, exactly. So we saw, okay, clowns are trending more than vampires. And at the same time, we have this new movie coming up with the clown. So we launch a stunt. We invite people for the premiere in Germany, and for the projection of this movie. And then after the movie finished, we just filmed the reaction of people that were actually seeing the credits, and then at the end of the credits, it was just a logo. Saying there was just a banner say the bottom line, never trust a clown. Boom, Burger King logo. That's it. That was the campaign. That was the campaign. Of course, Warner Bros was not that happy. We had to pay a fine. Okay, it's fine. But in earned media, we earned 11 times the fine that we paid. Everybody was talking about us, how bold we were, and sometimes you need to take risk. That's what makes to connect to what I said before, the challenger brand. You can't play according to the same rules of your main competitors. You need to find new ways to talk about that, and you need to understand where people source their news from. Our core target is 18 to 35. They read it from Reddit, BuzzFeed, Mashable, 9gag. So what's the language of this portal? So we need to be there in a way that makes the brand attractive, and that is why also we change the way we approach branding, that way we approach stunt, and how we build equity versus our competitors.
And I love that as well. I like as well is you've got this blend of, say, simplicity, where you've talked about these things where you're like changing the wrapper and then just adding this thing at the end credits. But then also one thing I want to dive into is the campaign that you've done most recently, where you've been basically hijacking other people's adverts. Well, not hijacking, but using your app to be able to burn away people's
reality.
Yeah, using virtual reality and technology. So it's not just necessarily the simple stuff. It's actually how do we use technology, and they're burning away other people's ads, and then people get the free Whopper from that. And it's all about the flames, and it's all on brand. So how do you blend that messaging? Because obviously you don't want to create all these different campaigns across new campaigns across different countries. Different countries have different tastes and stuff. So do you have to create new campaigns for every single country or region? Do a lot of these campaigns cross over regions, or how do you get all that to fit in together? Because obviously, as a challenger brand, you don't have as many resources, but you're operating in pretty much as many countries as your main competitors. So how do you make sure that these campaigns are as effective as possible over as many regions and countries as possible?
Yeah, as I said, the brief is very broad. So we don't talk about something which is peculiar to just for US, where we have basically half of our system is based, but it's something which is broader, can be attractive for everyone who is interacting with the brand. Now, yes, we have more Whopper sales in US than any other market in the world, but still is our most iconic brand, and still we have to push it. We know that there are cultural differences. In Russia, you cannot have the same humor that you can have in South Africa or in Saudi Arabia. So you kind of need to fine tune the asset, but at the end of the day, the core idea remained the same. And frankly speaking, our core target, so as I said, 18 to 35, they source the news, they read stuff exactly from the same place from all around the world. So it's not like that difference that was more clear and defined like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when there was only TV, or at least the main communication media was TV. Now it's actually everybody's talking the same legend, or talking about the same thing. I was just reading about the comments on Game of Thrones, where people posting from everywhere in the world, and we're talking about the same thing at the same time. So I think that's the beauty, right? If you have something which is powerful, everybody has a phone, a smartphone nowadays. Everybody can use an app. So if you download the app, and most likely there are competitors in your area, you can actually scan, as long as you have the API and that allow you to scan the right ads. You just need to load the ads of your competitor, and then you can scan it and you can activate it. In that sense, technology is a great enabler, and really it makes things easier. We did another one in Mexico. I don't know if you've seen that. In Mexico, we basically did the traffic jam Whopper.
I have not seen this one.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty good. So it's in Mexico, people get stuck in a traffic in a day for 5 hours. So it's kind of insane. So what we did, we basically used the latest Google API for the Google Maps and Waze to actually track where the people entering the radius of a restaurant. We just put some digital ads on digital screen and say, hey, stuck in the traffic, why don't you order a Whopper? People could actually order a Whopper through voice activation through the app, and the delivery guy was actually in the radius of 1.8 kilometer, was actually delivering the Whopper directly to your car. So that was another use of technology based that was an enabler. So we wanted to push our delivery service, and we used technology in an unconventional way. That was actually something pretty cool that everybody talked about it. So it's something that we can do in Indonesia, because Indonesia has the same traffic problem, or in India, or in Moscow. So there are certain big cities that have huge traffic problems. So you see, even if there are different countries with different cultural bias, I think it's with technology you can overcome this difference.
I think that's a really powerful thing to say, is that actually the technology can really help bring things close together. And there are always common threads and common traits that will run through different markets and environments, and it's how you actually utilize that. So that I think the traffic's a great one, isn't it? Because it's born out of people's frustrations. Usually when people are stuck in traffic, they usually want to eat, they're bored, they want something to do, and actually be able to have it voice activated as well, so that makes it okay for a lot of traffic legislation and governmental legislation. And actually you're providing something that people are actually really wanting at that time. So it's not, although it's say potentially disruptive, for some people would say it's disruptive advertising, actually you're disrupting people in a way that they actually want to be disrupted, because they're not actually doing anything else. Actually they crave that distraction there, and that's just something that's quite powerful to me, that I've sort of been working out in my head as you've been talking about. I think that's quite powerful.
Sure. No, in fact, it's always like a trade-off. I mean, technology is something that we always look, like we did for example with the Google Home. ad where we basically activated a Google Home through a TV campaign. But I think it's not the end. I mean, it's not like, hey, there is a new technology, let's do that because everybody's is on it. It's more like how relevant is that specific technology for the idea, or is there something that needs to solve a problem? We are big fan of traditional media, especially print and visual. So we pride ourselves by deploying pretty impactful print campaign, which are powerful enough to trigger waves of talkability on social and generate impression as much as any TV campaign or any digital stunts. So it's quite important. We just launched a new one. I don't know if you saw that. It's from Lola Munlo, from Spain, and basically it's just a picture of a sad clown and a crying baby, and then there is like the tag is birthdays should be happy. Burger King. So that's it. So we play on, of course, against our main competitor, and we also actually invite to ask our manager about booking a clown-free party. So the idea was to push our birthday party, and we use the notoriety of course, the party clown in a way which is engaging, because these pictures are real, are not a stunt. We just bought the rights to use them. We did the same thing for the delivery service. We actually Googled the always Lola Munlo. They Google picture of cars that crashed into restaurants and into Burger King restaurants, and you can actually find car that crashed into Burger King restaurants. And I say, okay, so let's use that. Let's use those picture. So they just took this picture and then just put a BK logo and at the bottom it just wrote, just leave it to us. Now you can order delivery with BK. So that's it.
I've seen that one, yes.
Yeah, that's it. It's so powerful, and at the end, very cost effective because we just have to pay the rights for the picture. But I mean, you need to understand how people, what entertain people, and you already need to think about what is going to be the headline, how you can work with PR to create a compelling story. It's much faster than before, and that's why sometimes there are these opportunity. They can be like a specific occasion, or they can be like a specific day of the month where you can actually tie to your new launch, a new product, new service, and you can create tons of awareness and engagement.
And that actually links to something I wanted to talk about next, and it's about the PR element of it. Because a lot of people see, say, PR as almost a bit of a no entity in terms of creating things that can be quite exciting. So say for all these things that are slightly more risky. So, for example, let's use your example of where at the end of it, on the end of the credits. Now, how would you be able to, I guess not spin it, but how would you be able to put the story out about that? Because obviously that would have generated some part of negative PR where Warner Brothers have fined you. So do you look at that before? How do you look at the risks of some of this stuff? Because if you're doing things that are a bit bolder and more daring than your competitors, how do you mitigate that and look at the risks that it'll have from the negative PR side and weigh those up with the going ahead with the campaigns?
So thank God we have like a very strong legal team. So every time we think about launching an idea, or the agency proposes an idea, we have our legal team on board, and we have like a traffic light system and say, okay, this is a yellow, this is a orange, this is a orange red. So normally we actually always looking for some ideas that makes us uncomfortable. So this is like mandatory. If it's an idea which is vanilla, which any brand can do, probably is not good enough for us. So when it comes to infringing some copyrights, or when it comes to something that can have legal consequences, we actually evaluate what with our legal team what can actually be the consequence of that specific action. Normally, we don't have like brands that sue us or they want to create a big fuss because they know they can be detrimental for them. So they know that we can actually turn around the fact that they sue us to our advantage. So that's why they don't do that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's yes, you need to take some. I'm not saying that you need to be nasty, or it's not about that, or you need to make fun of your competitor. It's just that you need to take advantage of the notoriety of something that is happening. If they're investing 5 times more versus your brand, probably you can use some of their advertising to your advantage. So that's the thing that pushes us to break the barriers of being a standard of the normal way of doing business. But yes, so it's always about having a legal on board all the time and making the choices. We don't do the right choices always, but yeah, I think that the one thing that our CMO always says, Fernando Machado always says, is that the worst thing that can happen is that we fall flat. So that we don't get noticed. So this is like I think it's the most important thing. We need to do things that have an impact and are part of the conversation or trigger a conversation. So this is like, I think is the key.
Yeah, and I love that. Again, it's one of the things saying the only thing that's worse than being talked about is not being talked about, and that's something that you guys are sort of living and breathing in this space, is the fact that you're you're creating talking points, and and that is it. You're understanding the market, the technology around that, and it's trying to create these little things, anything that's involved around flames or clowns or anything that's around those. These are sort of really core themes to what Burger King is and how it's sort of developing its identity. And I guess you've created this brand voice that people know when they see these things, this is a Burger King advert, and they know that this is the type of marketing and the type of content that you guys are putting out there, because it's all quite consistent. Even if it's a completely different campaign, you know there's these common themes that you've identified earlier on, these briefs you give to your agencies. Is actually everything has got these common threads that run through it, and I think that's quite fascinating for people to understand. Actually, it doesn't matter how big the brand is, actually you can really create these really interesting and different campaigns, all based upon 3 things that you deliver to three sentences that you give to a creative agency. I think that's mind-blowing.
Yeah, no, and so far so good. I mean, it's. I think that our main issue right now is how we're gonna raise the bar, how we're gonna generate more appeal and more. Yes. It's always that, because the audience is demanding and they're always expecting the new thing. So how we can be always on top of mind and be talked about, while at the same time delivering the values of the brand. It's not just about being talked about for the sake of being talked about, but it's more like, how can I deploy and build a brand proposition that is true to my brand, while I'm doing something that is a little bit controversial. But I think that's the tricky part. So you can do something which is bold and people will probably talk about, but has an impact on your brand. And that's what we do. We work with data all the time. So we actually measure every impact that we have with brand recall, brand awareness, consideration. So for us, it's really important, to always have to measure the effort to make sure that is actually as a positive impact.
Definitely. And the last question I really want to sort of get an idea from you is, how much then as a company do you look at your competitors and other people within the industry, either above you or below you? How much do you look at those, or how much inspiration would you try and look at people outside your industry? Do you focus quite a lot on your competitors, or do you almost ignore them, or how does that fit into you deciding how you're going to communicate and push your messaging out?
We are aware, of course, of what the other brands are doing. I think it's overall, if we have brands like KFC, Pizza Hut, Domino's, or McDonald's that have them, are doing great work, and they're doing work that actually generate talkability. I think it's good for the whole industry. So it's actually for us even more challenging and more exciting, and gives our agency, our partner agency, more adrenaline to work better, doing something better. So yes, we look at what they do, and but we are not afraid. We're actually happy, because we know that if the industry grows and becomes better and becomes everybody is talking about it, then everybody's benefiting. I think that 20 years ago, nobody wanted to talk about fast food because it was perceived as something really, really bad and unhealthy. While now things have changed, and people, if you look at the most talked campaign on Ad Age and the Drum and other portals, you will see that most of them are fast food brands.
I think it's a really interesting way of thinking, is actually how these perceptions are changing over time. This is all being driven by so many different things. There's government legislation, there's changing habits, there's the way that which you communicate. I think it's a really fascinating market to be involved in. I can see why it's quite exciting, but also some of the difficulty it is in constantly trying to push the boat even further. So I wish you all the luck, Andrea, and thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely it's been really interesting to see actually from how sometimes it can be something so simple that actually makes a big difference, and sometimes it can be these massive sweeping campaigns. It's interesting to see actually that it doesn't have to be one or the other. There can be all sorts of different things all merged in together, and it can be little things, it can be big things. So I think it's been really, really insightful.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me the chance to chat with you about this amazing brand.
Oh, no problem at all. But quickly, before I let you go, Andrea, I need to ask you one question that I ask everyone else at the end of these podcasts. And that is, what other marketing buzzwords are you loving or hating right now, Andrea? What is making you go, I wish people would stop using this word or this term, it doesn't really mean anything? Or something you're like, yes, I'm using this all the time and I love it?
Yeah, I think it's, I would say, anything that has AI, so it's like AI, everything that is connected to AI. AI is saving
everything's AI these days.
Yeah, everything is AI, and is saving, data mining can replace everyone every time. We also actually make fun of AI by having agency of AI. So we created an ad where as it was made by a computer. And it's extremely funny because they just place random word sounds like the word I should talk about, and it's so much fun. But yes, every time that I'm talking with agency or right now, they push AI, but then either it's super expensive or we don't know really how to fit it in our plan, and it's really tricky. I mean, I haven't find but this is a personal consideration. It doesn't reflect the brand.
Yeah, no.
But it's my really, every time I get stuck a little bit. Every time I'm proposing AI, I'm a bit skeptical.
Yes. No, I agree. I'm all for not adopting the shiniest thing just because it's the latest and greatest shiny thing. It's actually how we implement them properly. And again, if it doesn't quite work with these campaigns, there's no point shoehorning it in just because everyone's talking about AI if it doesn't actually work or really add anything there. If it just increase costs massively without actually any tangible output.
Yeah. If someone shows me a cost-effective way to use AI to boost brand awareness or sales, welcome.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time again today, Andrea. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Okay, cool. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I'm sort of lost for words a little bit after that episode. Andrea shared so many ideas and different ways of thinking that actually that us as medium, small, even other large businesses, we struggle to understand that we don't necessarily have to spend loads of money to create awesome campaigns. That we can do things a little bit differently. That we can push boundaries. And actually, we just have to weigh up these risks and rewards. That obviously everything we do has an opportunity cost. And it's whether that opportunity cost is worth the risk. I love that Burger King are just trying to push different brands, and it's almost like we don't care. That's what we want to do, and actually, by being a challenger brand, it gives us so much more flexibility and gives us so much more. It always gives us something to aim for and reach for, and I think that's something that's absolutely fascinating because most of us will work for challenger brands. Most of us aren't going to be the dominant brand in our sphere, so I think that's something that's really, really interesting that we can all take away. And I can't thank Andrew enough for his time on this week's show. So, thank you very much for listening. I'll be back next week with another guest episode. Goodbye.
This podcast is part of the You Are the Media Network.